Welcome back to the Rebellion. Banks and I are back in the studio together. Welcome back, man. Glad to have you here finally.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. We had an interesting interaction this morning. I was driving here. I put my ETA in, and I usually send the ETA to Shane because I never come exactly on time to keep him on his toes. And I was like, "Hey, I'm on my way, but if you don't want me to come and endanger your family, I'd understand." And Shane was like, "Well, if you don't, do you want to do it on Skype?" I was like, "No, I want to do it in person, but just making sure that I don't want to force myself on you." Like these silly things we have to go through.
I didn't know you'd even left yet, and so I was like, "Well, I'm going to give him the mount, man. If he wants to do Skype and not come around, my booger pickers and all that fun stuff here, my kids, I was going to give you the out to say, hey, you don't have to come in if you don't want to, but here you are, and here we are,
at least 6 feet apart, right?"
Yeah,
that's following the rules.
Yeah, look at that, man. This table, it's like we built this table with Corona in mind. 6 feet. 6 feet, people. Oh, man.
Shane,
what a... Don't come any closer. If you guys are watching on YouTube out there. Hey, welcome to the show, guys. This is The Rebellion. This is your place for peace, liberty, and free markets. World's turned upside down. I hate being right, Banks. I hate being these people that have talked about this for a long damn time, and here we are sitting in it, and it's going to get... Boy, it's weird. There are really terrible, awful things happening, and there's some really, really amazing things happening all at the same time, and you just have this dichotomy. You're like, man, where's the stable ground at? And
isn't that kind of just life in general?
I don't know. I'm a lot more balanced than this usually. This is. I mean, for a guy that does, kind of the war gaming in the background, especially in my mind, it's one of those things where now, as we're going to present to you guys, I mean, I'm sure Banks has got some things over there on his side of the table. I've definitely got some things that are going to pique your interest on this side of the table. There's a lot happening, and what I want to point out to people is the awful things that we can get ahead of, so that we can inform people, so that you guys can take it out to friends and family who for the first time are not paying attention to sports, who are not paying attention to things like fantasy baseball or drafts or basketball tournaments in March and things like that. Like, you want to talk about March Madness. Like, March Madness is here, and it ain't basketball this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point. I do think the people's attention, not that they shouldn't be the ones to be able to direct it wherever they want. I do think people's attention is still somewhat focused on things that might not matter as much as they think. The reality of all these different governments, and when I say all these different, more than I usually pay attention to, I mean, you've got like the governor here in Georgia, for example, has said, "Hey, I'm not closing private businesses." He is now closing some. That's. Oh,
we're gonna get into old Brian Kemp.
The details, but you've got like every little city, every little neighborhood, every little family making up their own rules, and then you've got all these rules that people don't know whether they're official or not. But I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, you're quarantined too." It's like, most people haven't been officially quarantined to anything, but we're all using this term, which is kind of a reflection of self-governments in the first place.
Do you want to approach the legal side of what's going on first?
I mean, the legal side. What definition of legal are you using?
Well, constitutional, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no legal side to any of it?
Well, I mean, here's the deal: is Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, just off the top of my brain, is where we get into things like martial law in terms of insurrection and invasion and things like that, right?
Are we being invaded by the virus?
No, I don't think we are. I don't think we are at war with the virus. I don't think that the virus that 98-point-something% of people survive is really that big of an issue. I think this whole thing, first and foremost, is a collapsed economy in total meltdown that is being paraded by the people who got us here as a virus. The virus is just a scapegoat, okay? And is it dangerous? For some people, it's extremely dangerous, but it is a small segment of the population that is elderly. We've said it a million times if we've said it once, right? We don't need to go back. We know who the at-risk part of society is. And within our homes and in our lives and in, senior citizen homes, I'm all for keeping those people away from the rest of everybody else and helping them through charity. Do you agree?
Oh, no, I agree. I want to read something that's more eloquent than probably both of us. Sure. It is from a friend of the show. I think she's liked our stuff before. Her name is Katie Hugh.
Okay.
And she is quoting who I assume is her parent.
Yeah.
Her mom, I guess. And it's, I am in that age group, 68. I do not expect all of you to take care of my health. If I know flu season or COVID-19 is out there, it is my personal responsibility to take precautions to stay safe and well. No one should have their freedom suspended because I am at risk. My husband is almost 74 and has health issues and on meds. He feels stronger about this than me. Maybe it's because he survived Vietnam and understands how easily our rights can be stripped for our own good and safety. This lockdown, etc., isn't about my safety. Think long and hard what door you're opening, allowing this to happen. And I was just thinking, I've been thinking about this for the past three days since she posted this. And it clicked as I was turning into where you live, and I took off my safety belt to talk to the person because I opened the window, there's a gate and so forth. And I didn't put my safety belt back on because I actually don't like safety belts, and I go really slow after that, right?
Drive fast, take chances.
and I thought, if somebody rams into the back of my car and I die because I wasn't wearing my safety belt, I'm pretty sure if I took a poll, people would be like, hey, the person shouldn't have ran into the back of your car. But if it's specifically because you weren't wearing a safety belt that you died, that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And I was all of a sudden really happy that we had this example to point out and be like, hey, you're all being inconsistent. Because in this other circumstance, for whatever reason, logic has been able to define itself to where we have personal responsibility. And especially when it's, hey, all you have to do is stay at home. And I'm not saying there's no logistical problems, right? There's logistical problems of getting food, of taking care of those people, of just interacting with your family. You live with multiple generations in your house, for example.
Sure do.
But it made me happy to see somebody talk like that. And I think if more politicians talk like that, but because the politicians are the ones talking, I'm not saying we need politicians, but if more people who had a public voice, maybe you and me,
an office,
talk like that and said, hey, actually, when you restrict the movement of healthy people or people who are otherwise not at extreme risk, because extreme is when something is extreme, then extreme things happen.
Or in contact with those people who are at extreme risk. Yeah.
So when you restrict healthy people or people who are not at extreme risk, that's called tyranny, martial law, whatever you want to call it. When you restrict or advise, and since nobody wants to die for the most part, people want to do it to quarantine people who are at risk.
Yeah.
That's called quarantine. Very different things. And they're being melded as the same thing, as if there's that. So in Spain, where my dad lives, people are being arrested for going in their backyard.
I've been talking with your pops a little bit. He's been talking at me, and I've definitely shot back a couple things in terms of some thoughts. And
you're not allowed to go into your backyard.
Yeah.
In France, they give in 40,000 tickets in Paris for people being out in the streets when they're not allowed to be out in the streets.
Tickets.
100
A tax is going to help the spread of this.
145 euros for being out and not having some kind of proof that you're supposed to be out.
That's stiff, man. 145 euros in a collapsing economy. On top of that, that's going to be tough to come by. Well, I'm glad you wish you had more people in office saying such things as this. I'm here to grant your wishes. Have you seen the lieutenant?
I didn't even rub your head yet.
Yeah, the lieutenant governor out of Texas, Dan Patrick, was on Tucker Carlson last night, and great segue. It just happens that I have it here. We're on Corona anyway.
Very cool.
Let's listen to this. This one is about 5 minutes. I'll get to the juicy stuff as fast as I can here.
Cool.
Well, as soon as American Family Insurance is done. Killing my ears here. I hate there's so many damn commercials. I guess, if it's free and it's on demand and all that, quote unquote free, it's free and on demand. You just kind of got to bear with it while it goes through it. But it's going through its commercial right now. The Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick out of Texas was talking with Tucker last night, and I found this to be extremely refreshing coming from a guy that is older and has been around for a while. So here you go.
All pushing their own perspective in their program and spinning you. But this one was very different. It was from the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, who's been on this show before. He sent something very long and thoughtful, and I just want to share part of it here because it's worth hearing. And he wrote this, quote, "I don't pretend to be speaking for everyone 70 plus.
Okay, I'm gonna pause right there. I don't want to do that a bunch on this, but I do want to make sure. He says, I don't pretend to be speaking for everyone 70 plus. This guy's speaking for himself, okay? And he's probably not alone when he says this. I just want to make that clarification, as he is not coming in and dictating for anybody who is, 60, 70, at risk, right? I want people to take a break and a breath to hear this man as a man speak.
But I think there are lots of grandparents out there who would agree with me that I want my grandchildren to live in the America I did. I want them to have a shot at the American dream. But right now, this virus, which all the experts say that 98% of all people will survive, is killing our country in another way. It could bring about a total economic collapse and potentially a collapse of our society. So I say, let's give this a few more days or weeks, but after that, let's go back to work and go back to living. Those who want to shelter in place can still do so, but we can't live with this uncertainty. Lieutenant Governor Patrick agreed to join us tonight. We're happy that he did. Lieutenant Governor, thanks so much for coming on. So you made clear, and I wanted you to say this and not me, but you made clear in this letter that you sent that you're in the category of people who face real risk from this disease. And I thought that kind of put it into perspective a little. Would you explain that?
Yeah, I turned 70 next week, Tucker. And, I sent you a note about a week ago that something has been really heavy on my heart since this started. And, so I'm automatically in the high risk pool. And I'm, as Lieutenant Governor, I work 12 or 15 hours a day, mostly from home now, but I travel when I need to. I'm living smart, listening to the president, the CDC guidelines, like all people should, but I'm not living in fear of COVID-19. What I'm living in fear of is what's happening to this country. And, Tucker, no one reached out to me and said, as a senior citizen, are you willing to take a chance on your survival in exchange for keeping the America that all America loves for your children and grandchildren? And if that's the exchange, I'm all in. And that doesn't make me noble or brave or anything like that. I just think there are lots of grandparents out there in this country, like me, I have 6 grandchildren, that what we all care about and what we love more than anything are those children. And I want to, live smart and see through this, but I don't want the whole country to be sacrificed. And that's what I see. I've talked to hundreds of people, Tucker, just in the last week, and making calls all the time. And everyone says pretty much the same thing, that we can't lose our whole country. We're having an economic collapse. I'm also a small businessman. I understand it. And I talk with business people all the time, Tucker. And my heart is lifted tonight by what I heard the president say, because we can do more than, one thing at a time. We can do 2 things. So, my message is that let's get back to work. Let's get back to living. Let's be smart about it. And those of us who are 70 plus, we'll take care of ourselves. But don't.
So I'm going to stop it there because he keeps going for a little bit. What are your thoughts, Banksy?
He seemed very genuine.
Yeah.
I think it seemed extreme to us because most of what we hear is not that. I told you, I've seen hundreds of emails and talked to quite a few people. There's both sides, but the majority are people who are calling for more action. And I understand if it's the fear that's getting to them, then I feel bad for those people, because fear is not something you like to experience. But so a city that's near where I live, I used to live in it, so I follow their Facebook page, and it popped up, and they're shutting everything down. The only thing they're doing is they're not shutting down restaurants, and restaurants can do takeout and to-go alcohol. Ooh, spooky.
Mm-hmm.
And so I commented a little thing there when there was only like three or four posts. I commented, hey, this is not what is needed. We don't know what's best for everybody. This is petty tyranny or something like that. And now there's thousands of comments in there. Not because of mine, just because everybody's on Facebook because they're not at work or they're not paying attention to work.
Yeah.
And they're bored out of their minds, apparently, is what I'm hearing. There's tons of comments on there, and I would guess 97 or 98% are, woohoo, awesome, it's great. Hold on, to-go alcohol? Are we sure that we're ready for this? What is going to happen? Why are you pushing this, Mayor? And then on my specific post, not woohoo, but I'm evil, I'm a Nazi, I'm a fascist, just all the things you can imagine from, just because there's so many people. I mean, there's like 100 angry faces on my comment. I imagine it's Republicans and Democrats. And I made like 3 typos. So a lot of it is about my typos.
Yeah.
And my last comment, which is only 2 comments, I was like, oh, I made a bunch of typos. I must be wrong. ... But so back to the video though. It's really nice to see people who are reasonable. And like, I'm usually wanting people to be pretty radical, but he's not pretty radical. All he's saying is, and I think the thing that needs to be stressed, because nobody's listening to this, is people can stay home if they want to. Nobody is stopping anybody from protecting themselves. Now, like, there's people who are homeless, and that might be a more difficult situation right now.
But that's a different thing. That is a different beast altogether.
Sure. And there's people who might have not prepared and might need help, but it's not like this was not an incremental thing. It's not like even now, let's say you're waking up from a coma today, you're like, damn, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't need to have pants on right now. Well, you know what? You stop real fast. You get pants on. You go to the grocery store. You call your loved ones, and you protect yourself.
Yeah.
People are going to have a hard time doing that if they've lost their job and so forth, but it doesn't mean that anybody is stopping them from protecting themselves. The government, who does horrible things, is not even stopping you from protecting yourself.
That's right.
Just stay in your home. And if you're so scared about the outside world, which some people are, I've got friends who have been sheltered in for 2 weeks, who do not leave home, who do not let me visit because I'm a threat.
Yeah, well, and that's cool, right?
That's totally cool.
Yeah, if you,
I love them. They're hurting nobody, and everybody's living their life.
I saw one of the best posts on this whole thing from our friend Catherine Bernard last night, and basically she's saying exactly the same. We can do both, guys. We don't need to fight with each other. It isn't an either or type of situation. It is both. Go out and work. Go out and do anything and everything you think you are safe doing. That and honestly, that's what this country needs. We need people who can go out and work. And from experience, when I was young, man, when I was like 18 to, I don't know, 30, almost 30 years old, I lived by myself, you know, and if I was around people, I wasn't around older people. And even at that time, my parents were probably only in, I don't know, maybe their 50ish, you know, like late 50s, right? So even if I was around them, they weren't like, you know, they wouldn't be in a high extreme group or an extreme group that's at risk. So there is a segment of the population that has all the wherewithal in the world to go out and do commerce and create and produce and trade through consent in these really awful times where we really kind of need it. And like you said, nobody's stopping anybody else from being at home and not going out and putting themselves at risk.
But we are stopping ourselves. So I talked to this one lady on the phone, and so she called Matt Gertler's office, or she called and emailed, and I called back because Matt is on too many calls. I mean, there are a lot of people who just want information and who have a lot more free time. And so I talked to this one lady. Her name is Cindy, and her and her husband own 2 businesses, a dental office and a kind of gun store, archery store, kind of thing like that up in North Georgia.
You have to let me know where the archery store is because I'm in need of a new one. Mine closed down.
Cool. Yeah. I've talked to her a few times on the phone now. She's a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And she called me because she was like, I don't know what's happening. I've had to like lay off some of my employees because people aren't coming in.
Yeah.
And I've had to she's like, I'm a clean freak already, so everything's like clean. and I'm doing my best. Like, there's no transactions of cash, and we keep people away. But I already did this. But then all the people who had appointments for like the teeth cleaning, they're calling me saying, "Oh, I'm not going to come in." And then I asked them why they're not coming in. It's like, "Oh, because we're quarantined." And it's like everybody's just, they're telling, like, this is why sometimes in history, as we've seen, it's so easy to enslave a population, because they'll enslave themselves.
Yeah.
And I told people I'm driving down to Atlanta today, and some people, friends, reacted as like, "Oh, are you allowed to do that?" And I was like, who told you you're not allowed to do that?
Yeah.
And I wish he had just said multiple times, like, "Hey, nobody's stopping you. Nobody's stopping you. Nobody's stopping you." And if you stop yourself, the trickle down effect of you stopping yourself from going to the local restaurant that sells biscuits in the morning. I literally went, and they were like, "Oh, it's so nice to see somebody buy a biscuit because nobody's been here."
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not at risk, and maybe you're like I am. Maybe you do live in a household with some people who are elderly, right? Mm-hmm. Or I should say elderly. Like they're not even 70 yet, for God's sakes. But, you know,
60 is the new 20.
If you got somebody who is this, you know, basically what you would assume is the strongest in terms of going out and going and not getting any type of disease, right? Send that person out. Don't take the whole family. Be smart. Don't do dumb. Like, these are just pro tips, right? Like, there's nothing right now that is keeping you in your house. That is something that I want to expand on here in a little bit too, because you say that, yeah, people don't understand right now. You're not quarantined. You can go out and you can do things. And I actually encourage you, if you have the wherewithal, go out and be a patron to a lot of your local businesses that do have drive-through type services right now. They need you desperately to keep the lights on, to keep jobs in place, and to really to keep your community going. I mean, when we get into this, I kind of want to get into Brian Kemp right now, because there's a few things that I want to hit on with this whole quarantine thing. Here in Georgia, yesterday was the day that he gave it, which will be, you know, I guess probably, what is today? Tuesday, right?
Yeah, so
it'll be Friday, a couple days ago, guys.
2 days.
But I want you guys to hear some of the language that he uses, and I want to get into the legal side of this, like we were talking about in the beginning of the show, just so people kind of have that ammunition to share with their friends in this whole thing. So the first part is Governor Kemp talking about how they are doing this. I don't want to say legally.
Smartly.
This is how they're doing it through the government.
Health will promulgate rules and regulations to implement this order and define how these individuals can access essential services, travel, and receive visitors if there's an end-of-life circumstance. This order will also close all bars and nightclubs, and it will ban all gatherings of 10 or more people unless you can maintain 6 feet between people at all times.
All right. I got it. Real contention with this piece, okay? I'm gonna fast forward here to the part where he gets into something when you take that first statement and then add to it the second statement that gets my spidey sense going.
He's splicing things like the media does, guys.
Yeah, well, you know, read between the lines. So here we go. He's going to keep talking for a second here. Let's go, Brian.
Fellow citizens, to fight this virus with everything you got. We are all part of this solution. If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, call them out or report them to us. If any establishment...
That's what I have real contention with. First and foremost, this is coming from Health and Human Services. Okay? Health and Human Services is not the legislature. They are definitely not an amending body to the Constitution of Georgia or to the Constitution of the United States. Mm-hmm. Okay? To tell people flat out, you no longer have the right to peaceably assemble
Is this Georgia Health Human Services or National Health Human Services?
I think it's probably. I think it's at the federal level that these directives are coming from in the first place. It may be Georgia Health Human Services. I'd have to go back into the video.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put.
Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's a government entity, one way or another. That probably gets money from itself in one way or another through dangling carrots. Now, the what this really boils down to, Governor Kemp, through a bureaucracy, has now told anybody and everybody in Georgia, you do not have the right to peaceably assemble. That's a problem. Unless you can maintain 6 feet dispersion. Well, all right. 6 feet dispersion. Is that a loophole? I don't know. Here's the problem. We get back into the way rights are taken away from people. This is one of those ways. I didn't see this coming. I can tell you right now, I did not see coronavirus coming. What a amazing crisis tool that these guys are going to use to try out things like this. Now, what gets really, really, really creepy to me is if you got people, 10 or more, that are not abiding by these rules, then you call us. Holy crap, Batman. I mean, you're gonna tell people, first and foremost, they don't have the right to assemble, and then you're gonna say, and if they do, you guys are all the secret police now. You call us, and we'll do something about it.
So here's what I think is very interesting about all that. The part about being a spy on your, I mean, this is nothing new, right? You go to the airport, it says, if you see something, say something. If you go to the state capitol down Atlanta, they have basically copied the airport TSA sign that says, if you see something, say something.
Right.
Okay. It's not, but what happens is Governor Kemp didn't want to do this. I don't know his personal feelings, but for whatever reason, part of it is his personal principles. Part of it is doing this is a lot of personal responsibility. Trump has, to some degree, let the governors decide what they're doing at the state level. A lot of people are upset about that because, like, oh, these governors are doing different things. But unfortunately, the people who run for office, they don't run for office thinking that it's going to be like a pandemic or disaster. They run for office thinking it's going to be the same thing as all the other people who run for office for the most part, and they're going to be able to thread that same needle in the same way without really looking down, and it's just an automatic process, right? And they can do it better than everybody else.
I agree with you,
because it's a safe road. Except they're so much better because, I mean, to be a politician, you have to have some kind of ego,
just confidence,
above average,
yeah.
And so I don't think that this is going to happen. Sadly, because most of them are only prepared for that, none of them want responsibility. And so this is a way to offshoot responsibility by doing a halfway measure. The thing that pinpoints his personal principles or lack thereof the most is that if you see something, say something. Because he can thread the needle of, he said in the past, I'm not going to shut down private businesses because personal responsibility and so forth. Those are all like taglines, right? All the Republicans know when they can use them, and they want to use them because those are the safe things to use for a random Republican. That little thing, while he's making this compromise that he has to do that puts responsibility on him, and he's doing it in ways where he's saying, this is not me, we're going to have another body, so distancing himself from that personal responsibility, make these assessments, if that, this, or the other, parameters of 6 feet, so it's not a direct say. That, I think, was a little slip where it's like, oh, you're either violating your personal principles and you're so worried about how this is going to look on you and doing the best job possible that you forgot so much that you got that slip, or the principles weren't there to stop you from saying that in the first place. How much of that is the case, I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad you caught that, because that is, I think, the most important part of that whole speech.
So let's lay it out constitutionally for people so that there is absolutely no gray area. The framers of this country, first and foremost, put in Article 5 to the Constitution. The Article 5 is the only process given, the only tool given to change the Constitution of the United States. The Bill of Rights is probably the most important part of the Constitution. It's what everything was predicated on passing the Constitution was based on. It is a list of specific and enumerated rights that they are charged with not only upholding, but not given the power to infringe. So
that they signed on to
voluntarily
as part of a contract. And so if they violate them, they are no longer part of the contract. Or they are violating the contract.
Now, Article 6, Section 3 is the oath of office. And I know Banks is tired of hearing me say this, but I'm telling you what, we got enough new people out there that have never heard it. Article 6, Section 3 is the oath of office. That oath of office is to the Constitution and upholding the Constitution, period. That is for all offices ever held. I don't care if you're a sheriff, a judge, a legislature, or an executive. All of them.
Or a member of the military and law enforcement.
Exactly right. Now, the Article 5, an entire article in a 2-page document that lines out the amendment process. There has been no amendment to strip anybody of the right to peaceably assemble. Period. Your right of association is still intact because they haven't gone through this process. Now, Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution. All laws that are not made in pursuance of the Constitution are null and void. They are not withstanding. And nobody out there, not a sheriff, not a judge, not an executive, nobody has any duty to comply with them. And in fact, they have a responsibility to run in the other way and absolutely be, what's the word I'm looking for, Banks? What's the cherry on top? To disobey, disregard, and fight such an encroachment on your rights. That is the problem with this whole damn thing in terms of the government coming in and eroding your rights. Nothing has been done through the constitutional amendment process, period. And they're taking this weird Frankenstein hodgepodge scare tactic to take people and whip them into a frenzy, not only through the government, but through the damn propaganda machines that are out there. And it is going to cost us lives. Ask me why I know.
Why do you know, Shane?
Boy, here's a fun little thing that happened back in, I want to say, the 90s. A lot of guys got together and they did some wargaming. They do this kind of stuff all the time. All the time. In terms of wargaming, there is a fantastic book that deals with an EMP blast. It's called 1 Second After. Spoiler alert. Mm-hmm. Go read it if you haven't read it, if you really, really want to freak yourself out. Now, I'm going to save you some time. If the economy shuts down, and then obviously in the book, the economy shuts down, an EMP blast, man, technology's gone. You're a caveman again. Good luck. See you later. We have an opportunity because we don't have that. We are actually still functioning human beings with all the technology at our fingertips that we absolutely have. Now, in the book, if an economy shuts down or when their economy shut down and people stopped participating in the market, and the economic term is the specialization of help me out, Banks.
I'm trying to.
Specialization of like basically your skill set.
The division of labor.
Division of labor. When the division of labor breaks down and there is no currency being traded and we're back on goods and services, or people are scared to go out and be part of a society. Mm-hmm. One of the first things that happens is the elderly and the sick and the compromised die off.
Well, why is that? It's because
they don't add anything to society in terms of economically.
Well, and the people who provided the goods and services that kept them alive, so the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, and so forth, cannot operate anymore because I don't have a pencil. Damn it. For on video,
two wishes, and you just start calling me the genie.
Next time I'm going to rub his head before the show, right, guys. But this pencil, there's this awesome book we've talked about multiple times called iPencil. Yeah. I'll link it in the show notes. It's a small pamphlet made by Fee. I think it was written by Lawrence Reed. Or no, is it Friedman? One of those two guys.
I think it's Friedman.
But this pencil takes thousands of different moving parts to be made.
Yeah.
You got to get the guy who mines the graphite, and then the graphite gets together, and then the guy who makes the yellow paint, and then the guy who gets the rubber from the tree down in Brazil, and then ships it over here, and then it all gets together, and then it has to be printed, and then it has to have some kind of marketing, and I mean all that. And so when you don't have that division of labor, that you're providing a service that's so narrow, but that can serve all these different parts, and somebody else says, oh, to do what I'm doing, I need to have that. Which, I mean, there's some basic ones that we don't think about on a daily basis. Here's your pen.
Oh,
your pen.
You might want to Purell that back to me. See you later.
But I mean, just driving down the road has the same thing that pencil, meaning we need rubber, and that rubber has to get formed into wheels and so forth.
Yeah.
If you stop participating in that economy, those who need the most. So there, I'm talking about pencil. We're talking about the ventilators and
we are talking about
the
meek.
medicine. Then those who need the most, who are the meek and weak, die off first.
And that's because people go back to taking care of life. They're first and foremost life, and not going out and trading, that time when we talk about the specialization of labor in terms of creating services or products or whatever that might be. That piece, they are now concerned wholly with their own survival and existence. And guess who doesn't fit into that picture? A lot of times it's the sick, it's the meek, it is the elderly, it is the dying. Those services are some of the first to go off, and that is the first die off. Okay, I hope we don't get to that damn point in this country. But I'll tell you,
things that there's a kind of natural force. Sorry to interrupt you. That we can be hopeful for. That would mean that we wouldn't get to that point,
right?
Because we all need less, but like things that take a lot of division of labor and a lot of people to come together to get. Like, I like going to the grocery store and buying toilet paper. Haven't done that in a few weeks.
Well, I'll spot you one.
When I'm going to need to, I'll see what happens. And even if we're scaring ourselves into thinking that, so we're not taught this in school, though.
Yeah.
So you've just got people who are an autopilot world who don't realize what's going on in their surroundings, who don't realize that when they go, I mean, we joke about this sometimes, that there's these things like, hey, you shouldn't go out hunting, you should just buy your meat at the grocery store. It's like, so there are people who are not making those connections.
Yeah.
And then when we're scared into something, and we're also taught or not taught how to think critically, and we're like, okay, I'm just going to go back to my primitive self, we still have this automatic, I mean, that's what's good about the free market, right? It forces us to do things.
Yeah.
It forces us all the time to, like, if you don't have money, you can't eat, right? It forces us literally to work, which makes productivity. Some people like working, but a lot of people, if they could, would not work. But you have to work if you want to put food in your mouth, right? Yeah. I'm hoping that will be enough of a our desire for food and for things that are more complicated than just sustenance, right? Will make the engine of the economy continue.
I hope that's what prevails.
I mean, I have friends who borrowed my Amazon to buy a bunch of books. So obviously there's people out there who are not just stopping completely like, oh, I want some books. Do you know how much goes into books and getting on Amazon truck and to your house? That's a lot of stuff.
Amazing amounts. Yeah, absolutely. No,
we should do a George Bush impersonation, be like, just go buy stuff. You'll fix the economy.
Yeah, man. Like I said, that I don't want to be this person that's a Chicken Little. I in the opposite direction. I want to tell you, hey, listen, to help other people out, we need to be working, those of us that can work. And if we don't, what we're going to see is those people who are the least among us affected first. And I'll tell you, that's not something that America needs at this point, man. You want to talk about getting behind the eight ball. That is a hard thing to live with, right? Like, there are people right now, I mean, I've got family that have, mothers that are on their deathbeds that they cannot go and see right now because they haven't worked out. Hey, she's in hospice. She's got about a day left anyway, right? And now, are you going to be allowed to go see her? Because first and foremost, you can't go into the old folks' home, right? You might be at risk. Well, how about removing them from the old folks' home if they are on death's door anyway? And at least having that amount of time, like that type of freedom to die with grace. Like there's a whole lot going on right now. We'll shift back into some other things. I did that piece, Banks. I want to give you the floor for the next piece that you wanted to talk about.
I mean, I just have a lot of things. I actually wanted to. This is slightly not about the coronavirus, but it's a clip of Donald Trump that you guys have probably seen. But the perspective that a friend of mine wrote up on Facebook, just as good as any article out there, is I think important and plays into what we're talking about fear. So here is our Lord and Savior Donald Trump.
We're scared though. I guess nearly 200 dead, 14,000 who are sick, millions, as you witnessed, who are scared right now. What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead.
So,
I saw that the pearl clutch where me, right? Like me.
Now the joke about the Lord and Savior, and I don't want to make this about Donald Trump,
hell.
but I do want to make this about fear and how the media reacts. So this is from my buddy Rob, and it's kind of long, but he said, the NBC guy who pressed Trump, what would you say to people who are afraid right now, wanted one of two answers. Trump could have said, they're right to be afraid. This is a dangerous time. We're doing the best we can, but we don't have all the answers. And the media would have said, Trump admits administration measures insufficient, virus out of control, says people should be afraid. Or Trump could have said, they shouldn't be afraid. We're doing everything that should be done. At some point, we will be able to see where it's getting better. It will get much better, much faster, and we will, if we wouldn't have done anything. And the media's response would have been, Trump claims his administration is defeating coronavirus even as infection rates skyrocket and deaths mount. And would then have a daily death count like the casualty count in the Afghanistan war. Just, those tickers and so forth, to push fear. Mm-hmm. And then he says, do you see how the reporter put him in a no-win situation? Either way, it would have been his answer that gave the prompt to negative stories about him. I think it's more important to talk about how this would affect fear in people's minds for days or weeks until they managed to corner him and to put him on the spot again for another few weeks of anti-Trump misery. The problem wasn't Trump's answer. It was the question. Trump was right that the guy is a terrible reporter. He wants Americans afraid, and he wants them to perceive that they are afraid because of Trump. It is simply anti-Trump activism in the press. It is not actual journalism. It's activism. The president was spending an hour in front of the cameras giving information to the public to make them feel better because good things are being done, and the reporter's questions showed that he was there to counteract the attempt to claim to calm the people. He was there to make them more fearful at Trump's expense. Trump gave the correct answer. You are a terrible reporter. The guy cares more about gotcha Trump than about the thoughts and feelings of the American people under great duress. In past times, the press didn't do this, and he goes on to say that this wasn't like the normal course of events. I'm not sure I agree with that. I didn't live in past times, and so I don't know as much. But I'm pretty sure this is a very human element to instill fear in people. As I said, the Trump side, I don't necessarily disagree with. I'm sure they're very motivated by making Trump feel bad, and we can see that with the stimulus package that's passing. Democrats and Trump are just like back and forth, and right. This is all the things the Democrats wanted, right? Tons of stimulus, tons of spending.
Don't jump ahead yet.
And so forth. But I thought that the focus on fear, and I've said many times, Trump has been put in a good position just because of how bad his opposition is.
Yeah.
I find very, 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 very important to focus on. So much fear. I could make the argument that even in the most fearful situation is when you should have the most grateful, clearest, calmest mind possible. And so to be able to focus on things that are calming, like I have no idea what's happening. But I look at videos of people who are more reasoned when they're, and there's one video I saw, and it's a moving graph of the deaths of the coronavirus compared to Ebola, SARS, MERS, swine flu.
Right.
And it goes, and it beats all of them at some point, and it stops at that day's date, which was March 21st.
Okay.
And then the swine flu continues on its curve, and it goes exponentially higher and so forth. And it's like, if you have the same trajectory, the coronavirus is going to outbeat it by a factor of like 1,000, and it's all scary. And then they're like, but you can just tweak this statistic, and instead of doing cumulative deaths, you do the number of increased deaths per day.
Okay.
So the cumulative deaths would be there's 1,000, and the next day there's another 1,000, so that's 2,000.
Right.
This would be one day there's 5 more deaths than the previous day, and then the next day there's 5 more deaths, and the next day there's 7 more deaths, and so forth. And it changes what the curve looks like.
Sure.
It looks like little
Statistics.
stairs. Yeah. And you look at that, and it shows that the increase right now is a 17% increase in number of deaths per day compared to the previous day. But the person made the argument. He made the same argument I'm making. I'm kind of copying him. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll tell you what. If deaths at some point, and we've got months before we arrive to the number of deaths of the swine flu, if deaths at some point start reducing by just 1% before I think it's like 11 months, then this will not be as bad as the swine flu. And the swine flu was bad because 80,000 people died or something, but apparently we were able to live back then, so we can just go back to living.
Amazing.
And he just kept on giving these statistical reasons why we could have a positive outlook, or at least a calm outlook.
Yeah.
And he's like, all the other statistics you're looking at are making you like freak out.
Right? I mean, I see that 98.8% statistic that if you even get it, you will survive. Holy hell, man. I like those odds, man. I've never been in the bottom, 1.3%, like I've never, like, I don't know, unless it was like trigonometry or something, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, when the chips are down, hey, keep that 1.3% in safe places. I'm sure that they know who the hell they are, right? They're probably already in a hospital or on some sort of home-based care already. Though I'm not going to repeat myself anymore. That's what it is. I love the fact that there are new people in that press pool. I love the fact that he does take these brass knuckles to people like that, and the fear mongering out there, I think is absolutely out of control. I mean, people are worried to death right now inside of their homes in comfort and luxury for now. And that doesn't continue if people stay inside their homes and do nothing and don't add to the economy. I wanted to, do we want to, I don't, there's so much. I've got a lot of evil, and I want to cap all the evil off with probably the most evil thing in terms of, I've got Barr, I've got Pompeo, and I've got Pelosi, and not kind of in that order.
Well, I think the Barr, because I know what that's about. It's about habeas corpus being suspended.
Yeah, DOJ wants to suspend certain constitutional rights during the coronavirus. And so
if we can go into that, and then before you do the Pelosi one, I want to ask a question, because I think that will do a good lead in.
Perfect. So this is out of a whole bunch of places out there that they're reporting on this, but I got this one from the Rolling Stone.
I think it was the first one.
Yeah, I think they were the first guys to break this, so I wanted to kind of make sure that maybe they got credit for it. I'll send you the link here, Banksy. The Department of Justice has secretly asked Congress for the ability to detain arrested people indefinitely, in addition to other powers that one expert called terrifying. I agree with him. The Trump Department of Justice has asked, and let's back up. William Barr, what episode was that? What, 57 or something like that?
I think it might be 57.
God, what a terrible, awful, rotten, evil human being. The Department of Justice has asked Congress to craft legislation allowing chief judges to indefinitely hold people without trial and suspend other constitutionally protected rights during the coronavirus and other emergencies, according to the report by Politico's Betsy Woodruff Swan.
What's the right we're talking about, Shane?
Boy,
because it's very specific.
Boy, number 5, due process, right? Like when you get arrested, you also have due process per the 5th Amendment, and then you also have the 6th Amendment, which is trial by jury. Trial by jury of your peers for a crime that you have committed. This man who has repeatedly through history just been a scourge on this country, period, and the people of this world. And we're not just talking like the United States. We're talking everybody from Vietnam and the Golden Triangle when they were running drugs and, basically sex circles over there for prostitution and young girls, to Afghanistan, to Iraq, to Ruby Ridge, to the one with
Iran-Contra.
Iran-Contra. Thank you. This guy's been involved in all of these. We've said that this guy is evil as hell before, and the fact that he wants to secretly approach Congress as if Congress once again has the ability through legislation and legislation only and circumvent the amendment process to the Constitution to strip Americans of their rights.
Just suspend temporarily.
God.
I mean, but he has precedent, man.
No
Precedent. You got you got Abraham Lincoln.
Well, then let's
had this big virus. The South wanted to secede, and he suspended habeas corpus too. So he's like, he's just doing it like the first Republican, man.
Slavery.
Come on.
Come on. By all means, slavery is okay then, right? The DOJ has requested Congress to allow the chief judge of a district court to pause court proceedings, quote, whenever the district court is fully or partially closed by virtue of any natural disaster, civil disobedience, or emergency situation.
I like how they do this stuff with the backing of the current pandemic or disaster, but then they always add some other stuff in there too. So the problem is I don't think everybody is going to understand why, pausing court procedure is important. So you have law enforcement out there. Mm-hmm. They can arrest people.
Yeah.
And if the court process that he's talking about is paused, those people, what happens to them, Shane? They just rot in jail while they're waiting.
Yeah. And then let's say
and the reason they can't do that right now is because they will be sued, hopefully by a bunch of good attorneys, because there's a right to habeas corpus. That means that when you're arrested, you get to go in front of the judge and say, I should be out while I'm waiting for my court for my day in court, and I should not be here in the first place. And the judge is supposed to make an assessment right there and then.
Torture, right? The Eighth Amendment, pretty important amendment. Torture and unreasonable bail, right? Mm-hmm. Both of those things are not. It's torture to hold somebody indefinitely for a crime that they cannot plead to one way or another. Secondly, they don't have a chance for bail at all in this type of situation. And the Attorney General of the United States is begging through back channels for Congress to draft legislation to make this happen. What a wicked bunch of evil MRFers, man. I can't stand this guy. I'm telling you right now, the fact that he's still involved in this administration is right up there with the fact that Mike Pompeo is still part of this administration. That he maybe the second, maybe the first, I don't know. They're pretty well tied in terms of this administration's most evil person. Agree?
I mean, if that is a very big question of who is the most evil people. I was going in the administration.
In the administration.
Okay, that squared it off a little bit. Yeah, I guess. Those are not bad ones. I'm thinking that there's probably some that are just as evil that we just don't know about as much.
Yeah.
I guess Bolton is out.
Bolton's out.
Well, Bolton's a little bit less evil.
And he's been talking about China this and China that, and they need to be held responsible. I mean, he's same thing. He's just removing Afghanistan or Iraq. He's basically playing Mad Libs with whatever country he thinks is this could be the military target right now. Let's go to war, right? Let's kill more innocent people because the governments are in the way.
No, I think Pompeo and Barr are probably up there as the top spots. It's not something I felt like it's. Hold on, this is not a question I should answer lightly. Okay, evil people in government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention too. There are things going on in the background right now that are super important that people need to be paying attention to, calling out. And, you got extra time on your hands. If you're on Twitter or whatever social media platform you're on, or all of them, make sure you're sharing this with people. This type of thing between Kemp here in Georgia and everybody at the administration level trying to, through bureaucracy, strip you of your rights. This is this cannot stand, and there needs to be public outcry and rage, man. Rage Against the Machine, only not the band.
Yeah, I wish I had more experience in DC, because I would like, because all I see is what happens through the same avenues we all do, right? And so when that happens, I see Senator Mike Lee shared that post and said, "Over my dead body."
Damn right. This better be a bad joke, is what he said too.
But I didn't see that much at all. And so I'd like to understand, like, I'd like to know in the legislative body, like, the lawyers that craft legislation, it's like, okay, are there a bunch of bills where they're talking about this? Are there not? Are the representatives talking to each other? And I have this experience the reason I know that I don't know something is because I have this experience at the state capitol. So 2 Mondays ago was a special session, and the governor called a special session of the Georgia reps who are in suspension. They're not in session anymore. They stopped session. So there's no budget being passed. There's no bills being passed. It's kind of a good thing sometimes. Yeah. They'll go back at some point if we don't all die. But there was a special session.
98% chance.
Well, they're a little bit older. Some of them.
Sorry to sidetrack you.
There's some older people, and there's actually, for those who are not in Georgia, there's a senator who knew that he was sick. He didn't think he had the coronavirus, but he went to the special session anyways. And now there's like 4 senators who have it. And he's being like, he's in a re-election campaign, and he's being blasted for doing that, which I think rightly so. Yeah. But the governor signed some executive orders and some things he wanted to do, and he needed the affirmation of the legislator. So the legislator gets called in. Only, I think, 190 people out of 236 came, because some were self-quarantined, some didn't give a crap. Mm-hmm. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, you got a pretty good excuse not to be there.
Yeah, and basically there was this one bill to vote on, right? This one thing, and the House had a version, and the Senate had a version, and a lot of the things in those executive orders, not the worst things, like moving around money within governments, like stuff that we don't care about. I mean, we care about the money being there in the first place,
right?
And then some things which apparently the government can already do. So one of the things said can force vaccinations. And then the explanation behind it was, but the Georgia Department of Community Health can already do that, so this doesn't matter, which is bad.
Holy wicked. Forced vaccination. They think they have the power to force vaccinate the population?
Apparently, in Georgia law, the Department of Community Health already, or one of the departments, I can't remember, the Human Services one, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The details at that point don't matter. But in the executive order, because that's part of what's written in law, what he's allowed to do if there's a state of health emergency, which is the first one in Georgia history, it says forced vaccination, so that's part of the executive order. And then in the talking points, it's like, oh, that one, don't worry, Georgia already has that power. So anyways, and then there's the other things, like we can quarantine people, we can commandeer private property, we can take over healthcare facilities, even private and so forth. And the Senate comes back with, the House has this version that says, okay, it's fine. After 30 days, it expires, and we have to come back and we have to reauthorize it. The Senate has a version that says the same thing. Right. Except it says after 30 days, you can reauthorize it. And that's it.
Yeah.
And and what happened, it passed in the end, right? The House apparently, for whatever reason, were cowards, and they didn't. At first, they were like, "No, we need our version because we have to have a check on the executive." Mm-hmm. And 6 hours later, they all voted for it.
Put their tail between their legs,
except for one person. You can guess who.
Yeah, Matt Gertler. Matt Gertler, people, the guy that's running for the 9th District U.S. Congress, the one guy that said no. There will be a check on the executive. We are not going to give them unruly power.
Yeah. And even a pretty reasonable one that I would be like, I want a total check. But he was like, okay, we can reassess in 30 days what happens. That seems damn reasonable, especially when we're like, oh, no, this should last for a few weeks.
It sounds to me like what the War Powers Act, the Authorization of Military Force, the AUMF.
Yeah, so, and this is why I'm going down there.
That's exactly what it is.
Do you remember our discussion with, who's the senator who's running for president now, under the Libertarian ticket?
Hornberger?
Lincoln Chafee.
Oh, okay,
So
Lincoln.
we talked to Lincoln Chafee, and he told us about when they put that forward, the first authorization for military force in Afghanistan.
That's right.
And he was like, it was written. It
was like basically a napkin.
It was written, and then there were like typos on it,
scratch
outs, and he had the piece of paper he had printed out, and I took a picture of it because I thought it was fascinating. And he said, like, nobody knew what was happening, and I only voted against. He voted for it in the end, so not too much credit to him. But he was like, I only voted against it the first time because like I thought we didn't have enough time, and I have some empathy for this. But the reason I started talking about this is because I'd love to know what's happening at the national level.
Yeah.
Because at the state level, this happened within the span of 8 hours. They got in. 98% of the legislators had no freaking idea what was happening, besides like what we all knew because it was in the media, right? We knew that there was a special session and that Kemp wanted some emergency powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They took a position really fast, so they're capable of understanding the goings on, right? They understood there was a Senate version that was different, the House version was different, and whatever internal feelings made them decide that the Senate version was just not okay. They were all steadfast. We are going to vote against unchecked power, and within 6 hours, that was gone. And how? Just because of the amount of confidence and work and establishment behind the powers that be, right? So Kemp and all the people who wrote the bill, right? The people who were in the know, right? They knew what they were doing. And these other people just didn't have the confidence to stand on top of the pressure. So the pressure we've always talked about, right?
Right.
People cave all the time. There's all this pressure.
Most of those people shouldn't be there because they can't handle it.
They had no idea what was happening. The reason they voted the way they voted, whatever amount of pressure affects a person, I don't know. We talked about all the time, but they just didn't know. They didn't take into consideration that it was that important. It was just some other day. You could have taken literally probably a random amount of those same people off the street, and you would have had the same vote with probably one person who was an outlier who said no. I would bet you'd probably get a few extra no's because you wouldn't have as people who are as beaten down as these politicians are because they're beaten down by the system, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder how much risk there is of that happening at the state level. I mean, at the national level. And I'm kind of extremely happy that this didn't happen within the first 2 years of Obama or the first years of Trump, because with full control of Democrats or full control of Republicans, something horrendous would have passed.
Sure.
And it's quite amazing, actually, that with so much fear, like people are saying this is bigger than 9/11.
Oh, I definitely think so.
Something worse hasn't happened.
Yeah.
But it could.
Yeah, could.
That's my segue.
Oh no! Here we go. Let me give you one of the top two most evil people in the administration, Mike Pompeo, in terms of what he's doing right now with all the power he has. The guy that's on record saying, yeah, and basically they taught us to lie and cheat and steal, and it was fun, and he was applauded out there on YouTube. During a press conference, I think it was over the weekend, I think March 21st sometime, Mike Pompeo comes out, and I don't know if it's a Freudian slip or if it's just his big mouth. He can't keep in what he is doing. And I may play it twice because it's real short. But take a listen to this.
This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We need to make sure that even today, the data sets that are available to every country.
All right.
This matters going
forward.
One more time. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We need to make sure that even today.
All right, two things going on here, right? He says we're in a live exercise. That might not mean a lot to the untrained ears, okay?
Well, I mean, it's just what you said, right? They've war gamed this whole thing, and now they've just got a live version of what they've already war gamed.
Here's the deal. There's a difference between an exercise and an operation, okay? They are not synonymous.
Okay.
The difference being use of force. And in an exercise, there's no use of force. You're pretending. You're basically going out into whatever training environment you're going into. Weapons are not loaded. There is no sanction of force. There are no rules of engagement. There is nothing. period that gives the government the ability to contact, harass, or detain you for any purpose whatsoever during an exercise. Okay?
Why did he say exercise then?
Well, that's what it is, right? Like that one piece is probably a good thing. Here's the problem though. With an operation is live. There are rules of engagement. There are things going on in the background that most people don't understand. There is definitely a delineation between exercise and operation. Now, with that being said,
wouldn't we be I'm sorry to interrupt here. Wouldn't we be in an operation though? Because this is happening in real time. Wouldn't exercises be outside the purview of real time?
No, exercises domestically though are not in the purview of the State Department. I want to bring your attention to one other thing in that video here in a second. The mission of the U.S. State Department leads America's foreign policy through diplomacy, advocacy, and assistance by advancing the interests of the American people, their safety, and economic prosperity. They are not supposed to be within the borders of the United States whatsoever. Mm-hmm. The fact that the State Department is running exercises on the American population right now should throw up all sorts of red flags, man. This government has lost its damn mind. For Pompeo to come out and do this, and then in the background, did you hear Trump?
He said I didn't hear him very well.
You should have let us know. I'm going to play it one more time. Really take a listen to it.
This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We need to make sure that even today, the data sets that are...
Did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah, you should have let us know, is what he said. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, we know that there's been this
boy,
flickering lights here.
Yeah, boy, power.
Your bulb is going crazy. That's kind of cool, actually. I like it.
We're just gonna let it go. Yeah, we're apparently, I don't know if maybe a tree is down on the power lines up here on Liberty Mountain or something, but we're gonna keep recording one way or another. Oh boy, it's gonna be touch and go here for a second, I think.
That's kind of cool. But we know that Pompeo and Trump have had a very weird relationship, right?
Yeah.
We played that thing when they were trying to do the peace agreement for Afghanistan, where Pompeo was visibly like uncomfortable and had been forced to go there.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It is. It's really, really creepy that this is going on and there's an admission. And the fact that Trump just stands there and says, we're in an exercise right now? We're in a live exercise in the United States. Like, at the podium, says you should have let us know. Boy, like, I don't...
So you see what's interesting? That plays into what I'm talking about. The only reason that Matt voted no against that last Senate resolution to give unchecked power to Brian Kemp is because of the set of principles and the set of training that he was able to go through over these years of paying attention, right? Mm-hmm. His training probably started when he was a little baby and his parents taught him a good set of values, right?
Yeah.
And it does make me think that I'm grateful for Trump in that sense, because he does have this ability that most politicians are stripped of, to be like, yeah, I don't really care whatever like happens, like something internally that I'm not going to let a bigger bully, because Trump is also a bully, right?
Right.
So, but that means he also has some kind of confidence, and he's like, yeah, hold on, I don't like that.
Yes.
And most politicians are beaten out of all of that by the bigger bullies. We're talking about the Federal Reserves and the Pompeos and the deep state
donors,
a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. And I do. I'll tell you right now. I want to say, God, how do I even phrase this? I'm at a loss of words sometimes these days because of what's going on.
Well, I think that
I respect anybody who stands up to government, bureaucracy, whatever flavor it is out there. Mm-hmm. And during this time, and obviously media propaganda, I have a lot of respect for that. And to be able to sit there on a live press conference, with the entire world watching what the United States is doing and say, oh, wait, man, you should have let us know, kind of like it almost is this caveat into I'm gonna break rank here. Obviously, I'm gonna break rank with my own State Department chief, and I'm gonna at least put this out there so that if something does happen here, I've got some plausible deniability. That's a huge thing for a president to do, to undermine his Secretary of State in front of everybody. I'm just curious as to why and what the hell the State Department is doing right now. I mean, people, you need to let Donald Trump know in no uncertain terms that the State Department has no business running exercises on the American people, especially during an economic meltdown that's being scapegoated through a virus. We've lost our minds.
So the thing with Trump is that he's a very practical person, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily care about any of the rules.
He wants to be successful.
He'll just adapt to what happens.
Yeah.
And even with he's been in there 3 years now, I guess.
Yeah, over
even
3 years now.
with 3 years, I don't think that he has. I don't think anybody could. This is not against him, actually. I don't think anybody could understand how everything works. And it's funny that when he sees something that goes against his logic, right? And in his logic, he uses a bunch of tools that I don't think that I don't like. But even to his logic, are like, whoa, hold on, not this doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this to American people and me, who should be knowing
I'm in charge
this?
of the corporate country,
yeah,
right? Like, I want to be successful, and you're a runaway, like in a business sense, you're a runaway VP. What the hell are you doing over there?
So what does he really think? Because I could also see him catching himself and being like, okay, I can't say too much because I can't seem like I'm out of control.
Yeah.
And I've always postulated that he could be keeping some people in his administration. I'm not sure
I agree.
Close because they're enemies. And it's a saying for a reason,
He
right?
gets to control them right now.
Yeah.
Right. If they're part of his staff, at least he has control over them. Kind of like when he sent Pompeo to do the whole Afghani peace talk thing. He's like, he didn't want to be there, and he had to read the words of Donald Trump or Donald Trump's advisors that are very close to him.
I mean, the RNC tried to push him out, and then his chief of staff was Ryan Priebus. I mean, it's freaking hilarious. Okay, like there's so many examples, and I don't remember all off the top of my head where I'm like, that makes no sense unless you think a little deeper and be like, well, actually, Trump has this confidence where he can pretend to be the bigger man, but he's actually just making sure that he can control people. Yeah. And sometimes Mark Meadows just became Trump's chief of staff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, after endorsing an establishment candidate, and Trump is really upset at that.
Yeah, I bet.
And the first thought that came into my head was, I wonder how fast Mark Meadows gets fired. Because what better method to be like, hey, come be my chief of staff.
Right.
By the way, I remember you did something I didn't like, and then be like, oh, I don't like that, bye.
See you later.
And then the guy's like, oh, what happened to me? What happened to me?
I can see it, man.
I feel like it's happened a lot.
Yeah.
Probably at much lower levels. He's probably instructed, this is complete conspiracy theory at this point, which you'll like. I feel like QAnon at this point.
Oh, boy.
He's probably instructed multiple people throughout his administration that he could trust more and be like, hey, this is what I do. Go down there and do it too.
Yeah.
Hire people that you hate, and then fire them like 6 months down the road, and they lost their job that you took them from, and they lost that job. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
we're going to make America great by firing all these people. Did you not watch my TV show? That's what I do.
They got a big blemish too, right? Like almost like do not rehire, right?
Well, there's that blemish is a good thing for the other side.
Some people,
but
yeah. For some people, yeah. As soon as they're rejected by the Republicans for being more in line with the Democrats, right, who are full speed ahead, foot on the accelerator, drive us off the cliff anyway, and here we are out in space, free floating. Yeah. We'll take him. Give him to us. Give him to us, right? John McCain? We'll take John McCain. Give him to us. Like, that's how that works.
Unless you're a Liberty person.
Yeah.
And Liberty people fall into that trap all the freaking time because they don't think it through. I mean, this was part of what I'm upset with Nick Sorwork at, who I've been told I shouldn't attack anymore because he's stepping down. But Liberty people will disown things and, like, take pride in upholding oftentimes, unfortunately, like these liberal things, right? They'll jump on the bandwagon of, SJW stuff. I can't think of examples. And then they'll hope that the other side is going to take them in because look, they've rejected me because I keep on pushing back against them.
Yeah.
But no, if you're actually liberty and you're not playing within the system, both sides will hate you.
That's right.
It's not going to work.
Well, it's because they're the same damn team, really. I mean, when you really, really look at it, it's just who's in power, what day of the week, whose team are you on, and we're going to do the same thing as they did over there, only we're different somehow. It's all the same damn stuff, right? Like, so...
What's our timeline, by the way?
Well, we're sitting at about 1:17-ish right now.
Okay.
We've got some time, and I don't want to cut this short because there is stuff that is kind of breaking when we're recording this that needs to be talked about in terms of really, really super duper evil.
Okay, so I've got this question then.
Yeah.
Away from the news.
Yeah.
The concept. Andrew Yang, this was last year.
UBI stuff?
Yeah, we first, I remember we first, talked about Andrew Yang, and he had this idea, and I was like, that seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
The fact that Justin Amash is jumping on the UBI bandwagon right now.
Oh, boy, you're teaching me stuff.
Bro, breaks my heart, man. Somebody out there, I think it was maybe the redheaded libertarian or something like that, was like, man, something's happened to this guy. They got to him somehow, one way or another, and now he's touting basically, UBI and payouts and stuff like that. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, man, something's happened.
I'm not seeing it. So for now, I'm saying fake news.
No, it's definitely on Twitter, man, and I saw it, and it's definitely Justin's account, man. So. The really evil thing that has come to light, you guys probably saw over the weekend, the Senate was just putting on the best WWF show that they could for everybody. They were in there telling everybody how evil the other side was and all that kind of stuff. They're all evil bastards, guys. The House was on quote unquote recess, right? What was really happening? Well, on Monday, Nancy Pelosi comes back and puts Congress back in session. And what does she bring with her, Banksy? Do you have any idea what she's brought with her?
Oh, she's brought a million things because you did you hear the one congressman, his staff apparently leaked it kind of by accident. Mm-hmm. But he is the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip. His name is Jim Clyburn. He's from South Carolina, and he reportedly told colleagues and his staff that this bill, so the big stimulus bill to do all this stuff that Pelosi unfortunately has a lot of control over because the Dems have control of the House, provided a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision. What's in the vision, Shane?
Well, brother, the one thing that has my Peter tingle, my spidey sense, this is got to be one of the most evil damn things, and we've talked about it here on the show before. So this is out of Forbes magazine. This is the new coronavirus stimulus bill in Congress creates a U.S. digital dollar. This is by Jason Brett. As the markets continue to drop and the U.S. looks to Congress for agreement on a massive stimulus package to save the economy from impacts of the corona pandemic, the newest offer by House Democrats includes a very forward-looking kind of stimulus, the creation of a digital dollar and the establishment of a digital dollar wallet. And what will send shockwaves through the cryptocurrency and blockchain industry, particularly for those following central bank digital currencies around the world, the signals of the U.S. is serious in establishing infrastructure for a central bank digital currency. Both Speaker Pelosi's Take Responsibility for Workers and Families Act and the Financial Protections and Assistance for Americans, Consumers, State, Businesses, and Vulnerable Populations Act, I know, H.R. 6321, introduced by Chairwoman Maxine Waters of the Financial Services Committee, introduced these concepts today as a way of delivering the economic stimulus payments to U.S. citizens. The bill establishes a digital dollar, which it defines as a balance expressed as a dollar value consisting of a digital ledger entries that are recorded as liabilities in the accounts of any Federal Reserve Bank, or an electronic unit of value redeemable by an eligible financial institution as determined by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Additionally, a digital dollar wallet is identified as a digital wallet or account maintained by the Federal Reserve Bank on behalf of any person that represents holdings in the electronic device or service that is used to store digital dollars that may be tied to the digital or physical identity. So I'm going to stop there for a second.
Yeah, Shanti. Why? First thing, I think we both agree that the idea of this is not new, right? This is not.
No.
This didn't just pop up within the last 2 weeks
Nope.
of coronavirus.
We've been talking about this for a long time.
Why would they want this?
Well,
A digital currency, just broadly controlled by the Federal Reserve.
yeah. So first and foremost, what do you have to do when an economy crashes? You got to replace the medium of exchange one way or another. The dollar's worthless. Everybody knows that the dollar, when they pump in a 1.5 trillion extra dollars overnight for stimulus, right? It's going to cause inflation. And the dollar won't buy anything, especially if nobody's working and there's nothing on the shelves anyway. You're going to have a whole bunch of money in your pocket that can't buy crap anyway. Definitely can't buy toilet paper. Now, what I see in this is control. In terms of a digital currency. A digital currency, well, in a futuristic sense, sounds really kind of cool. I don't have to take money and wallets and cards and crap. I can just get a chip basically implanted in my arm, and I can go about my business and be me without all this extra stuff.
Well, no. So
no.
But
I'm getting to it.
You're falling in. You've already fallen a little bit into the trap that a digital currency is not necessarily scary. It's the same thing as a fortified private property is not scary unless the government owns it and turns it into a prison.
This is where I'm going. In a private society, this is okay. In a private market, digital currency is fine. Crypto, Ethereum, the rest of these things in the blockchain have never really hurt anybody, especially by the government, because it's all been through consent. This is the scariest hell part. When the Federal Reserve controls it, and there's a monopoly on force backing it by the United States government and all the state governments that are out there, what can they do? They can attach a social score to this. Now, if you're not a good little American citizen and you are rebellious, you are not in line with the current administration or current government's wills, what can they do? They can take that credit score and they can lower it to a point where now they can freeze your account. Not only can they freeze your account, they can freeze your right. They can freeze your right to that account so that you cannot travel. They can make it to where you cannot get a job. They can make it to where you cannot buy food, toiletries, or anything. That's incredible. That is a prison amongst itself, and it gets worse because people who are around you, who are associated with you, can also be made to feel the pain of your rebelliousness.
Well, there's just so many things on even more practical levels. It means that whenever you want to spend money, there'll have to be a
ledger,
a communication between you and the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
So you're not. Most of our day is.
I kind of skipped ahead to the really awful, crazy, terrible things.
It's spent around spending money.
Yeah.
Buy food, and then we go home, and then we need other stuff, and we get out of our homes, and we
All
go
day long.
and buy other stuff. It means that, and we do this already, right? Like, I don't carry cash. I buy everything with a credit card. And then I saw the little sneaky part there, which would have been the case anyways, and it's kind of the case already with the financial system, except that they can't control it 100%. And so they have to be careful because the more they push, the more people can push back by using cash or using other methods to do it, or using Bitcoin and so forth. But if they have a system where like the Federal Reserve gets to decide which banks that take your money, this virtual currency, are allowed to redeem it from the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve can stop anything they want. They don't even have to stop you individually. They can just stop businesses, and they do it already. This is why it would happen. The government issues statements, and then magically you have Wells Fargo and Chase and PayPal and so forth who stop doing business with gun brokers anymore. Mm-hmm. And then you've also got what I think a lot of people, because there's a lot of people who care about this, because especially right now because of tax season, which has been delayed. Little spark of joy spark of less pain.
I'll tell you right now.
Within this horrible situation, but. You've got the tax system. Right now, they talk all the time about how there's $1 trillion of taxes that are unpaid every year, and they have all these employees, and they need more funding to crack down on people who are not paying their fair share of taxes. They would be able to track everything. There's no way that you could possibly get away with it. And when you have no possibility of escaping it, what incentive do they have to need to be scared whatsoever to raise taxes on anything?
Right.
You don't think right now that they don't take into consideration, hey, because the free market exists and you can't stop it. If we raise taxes this much, we know that at some point there's a point of diminishing returns, and that hurts us in the end.
Yeah.
Like the tax system sucks, but because of the free market and because there's freedom opportunities there, they have to be somewhat careful. This takes away any need to be cautious. Be like, well, they can't escape it.
We just fix it.
Why would they?
We'll just take a zero off or whatever it is. Whatever we need, we're going to take it as the Federal Reserve. And we know exactly how compassionate those people are, right?
Well, they're so compassionate that if you're behind on your taxes, now there's a law that was passed, a few years ago that says they can take your passport.
Yeah.
So you don't think that this makes it much, much more easy? Right now, they can't take my passport very easily because they have to have somebody who's a TSA agent, okay, not the most efficient person in the world because they let things pass through all the time, has to have me on a little list, and they have to kind of have some little system if they decide to put me to stop me and take my passport from me.
Yeah.
This would just be all automatic.
Yeah. It's crazy. Your tax code.
You're
a slave.
I couldn't even fight somebody. There'd be some kind of system the same way that when you get kicked off of Facebook, which has never happened to me, but I hear it's happened to a lot of people. Like, you don't know what to do. There's like, oh, here's this number, here's this form that you can like put a.
You can talk to some non-caring government official.
Some kind of appeal, and because it's technology, so you're not allowed to talk to anybody ever. It's a glitch in the system.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to wait for the system to respond back to you. You know,
unbelievable. And you want to talk about the most evil damn thing out of all of this. I'll tell you right now, man. This is my vote for now. For now, don't get me wrong. We're only getting into this. But this is the most evil implication out of this entire damn thing.
I agree.
I am beside myself. I mean, when we were talking about this with China and the social scoring system and how they can lock down, boy, what a weird. I mean, not weird. Again, we've been talking that this is going to happen in the United States, and here we are in our live Mike Pompeo state-sponsored exercise here in the United States. What a weird world we live in.
Yeah, I don't know what that ends up looking like. I know people. So as much as it's kind of it's going to happen in a faster way if it's pushed through during the coronavirus thing, I would imagine that Trump could see the downside and the upside of this, unfortunately. The upside is it's much easier to give relief to people, and Trump is not against control either. But he does dislike the Fed, and he has done somewhat of a good job making them the bad guy, like continuously. They have power that he can't necessarily stop, and he doesn't like that.
Yeah.
So I could see potentially him pushing back against, or I would hope that he'd push back against that.
Interesting things out there, and I don't know. Do I want to do this? Jeez, Pete, I
yes,
don't know
you do.
if I
know
want to
what
do
you're
this.
talking about.
What's that? QAnon?
Yeah. I was gonna say our buddy Hank.
All right, so I couldn't anymore, and God bless him. I could not do it anymore. Do you have something from him specifically that you're going to pull up and talk about?
I can if you want. It actually was quite insightful.
So my brothers actually sent me two things yesterday. Where I had
your brothers plural.
My brother sent me two things yesterday. both from the same guy. He's a Marine. He's a QAnon guy, talking about what's actually happening and for people to chill out and calm down. Here's the deal. From QAnon, I'm not saying any of this holds any weight whatsoever. I have maintained for a long time that you should not have any trust or faith in an unknown plan and an unknown person. I know that things sometimes can be manipulated and shook out to kind of, manipulate people. I take severe reservations with even talking about this kind of thing. But because it is in the realm of a quote-unquote possibility, I guess we're going to have to talk about this a little bit.
So I'll give credit to Hank. He basically shared the Forbes article that says the new coronavirus stimulus bill in Congress creates a U.S. digital dollar. And he wrote, well, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's got 463 shares.
Wow.
His comments there. And he basically, it's very QAnon-ish, but I think there's a lot of good insight. And I actually used some of the insight to talk about the Trump thing.
Sure.
He says, I've been telling you that the purpose of the next big world crisis would be for the globalists to create conditions necessary to usher in the reset of the Federal Reserve System, which is now effectively dead. I agree that a reset of the Federal Reserve System, which is the glable control of
international
monetary
banking
policy.
cartel, yeah.
I agree with that 100%. I don't think that's a conspiracy whatsoever. That the Fed is effectively dead now, I don't agree. I think that's super optimistic.
Oh, no, because they still have tons of power, right? Like when you have all the resources, right? Like their balance sheet, right? With what they've done in terms of snatching up all these assets over the past 117 years. 117 years.
No,
107 years. They got a lot of assets, people. They are not powerless. They are not dead by any stretch of the imagination.
And everybody uses their system.
Well, not only that,
on a daily basis.
This is their doomsday, right? They're coming for our stuff. Like if you're the Federal Reserve, they're coming for our stuff. And I got all the military. I got tons of politicians. I got religions. I got anything and everything in industry that if I need to protect myself, I can offer people amazing things that would blow most people's minds. And you want to watch what one desperate person will do to obtain a status. It's absolutely evil. It is absolutely evil. They're not dead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. He says they wanted a war president, which Hillary Clinton would have certainly obliged, but President Trump has not given them. The globalists just tipped their hand. We now see what they have been planning. It's in the open. So just now, the Fed cannot come back from where it is now. The system is so heavily debt-laden, it can only continue to operate by steadily lowering interest rates. Yes, even going negative, attempting to flood the world with enough currency to keep paying for the debt service on what has already been issued. So here's how the globalists plan to keep the Fed in operation: maintain control of the issuance of currency, and therefore hold on to their wealth and power around the world. Again, what do I agree on? They are losing control. This would give them,
I agree,
not 100% control.
They're in meltdown,
but a lot of control.
Right.
I think again that he's highly optimistic about the state of the Federal Reserve. I think that they have done this, but they've been doing this, printing money forever, and it has worked plenty of times. Mm-hmm. It's still an unstable foundation, but it's the reality is that, I mean, that car is still going at 100 miles an hour, and it hasn't stopped yet.
Yeah.
Now, the bearings are shaky.
Well, and this is when it says it's most dangerous.
Yeah, because it's in survival mode.
Exactly right.
Then he says, among the rest of the BS, Pelosi and her henchman Schumer want to put into this coronavirus relief package the legislation to include a new diabolical Federal Reserve-based digital currency. Why? This is what the globalists have been looking for, a way to reset the global currency while still maintaining control. Trump has successfully destroyed the viability of the Federal Reserve, relegating it to issuing proprietary currency essentially free of charge. Pelosi and Schumer want to use this coronavirus crisis to reset the world currency using a downloadable digital wallet smartphone app, which according to their bill would be the only way for people to receive stimulus benefits from the government. And that's most of his commentary. I think it is there's the Trump angle here. And again, I hope that Trump is actively fighting as much as he possibly can against the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
I think that he has weakened them in a PR perspective. I think that the current state they're in is just the current state that any entity who was using so much lies to try to have control would be in.
Yeah.
But I think it's all we just said. This app on our phone that everybody would use because that's how you get your benefits. And if it's those benefits, well, why not all the other benefits we all get? Which they assume that we all get it, right? Because we all get a tax return. We all have to file our taxes anyways. Because if not, people come with guns.
Are you getting this?
Even the people, the app.
Yeah, you getting the handout from the government.
Oh, so I guess that's a good question to talk about.
Yeah, I'm not. No damn way I'm putting a Federal Reserve app on my phone.
Oh, if it's through an app on my phone? No, I'm not putting an app on my
Hell
phone.
no.
But there is the discussion of, like, if they send you a check, do you take a check?
Do you use it against them?
Well, there's that argument. There's also argument that they're stealing from you every day. Now, I don't want to justify taking handouts, and there's people who take Social Security and they paid into that, and
there are people who don't.
And the government steals from us every day. There's
Yeah.
people who take unemployment benefits. Well, they paid for that, and the government steals from us every day. There's people who take food stamps and welfare, and they justify that because the government steals from us every day. It's very easy to justify things. I think this thing, when it's been like $4 trillion have been printed within the last few weeks, I think it makes it much easier to justify. That scares me a little bit to justify it to myself. Be like, yeah, damn it. Like I've got all the cash I already have is becoming worth less. I might as well protect myself, but I don't like justifying it. What about you?
I don't know, man.
Check. I thought it'd be pretty cool if on the podcast we ripped up our checks.
Yeah, they're not going to send checks. They're gonna send that, and I don't know. I haven't ever thought of it. I didn't. I just saw this thing this morning. I don't know, man. I don't want it. I definitely don't want to be a part of it at all. I really, really don't, because.
So what are people supposed to do if they can't pay rent and utilities?
I don't know, man. I think there's a moment where a lot of this really ridiculous market is going to be reset, and that's the thing, is there's going to be so many people out there that cannot make the bills, mm-hmm. right? What are you going to do? You're going to kick them out on the street? You're going to have the Federal Reserve go and give power to the thugs and have them show up at people's houses during this time and kick them out? Boy, you want to talk about really, really pissing off the wrong people. You want to talk about setting a nation on fire?
Well, that's why they do this. They do this so they can stabilize it and it doesn't get too bad. I think.
Do you think they'll kick people out of their house? I think. Well, I think they don't have a choice, right?
It depends who. I think if this doesn't happen, I think people get kicked out of their houses. People get kicked out of their houses all the time, and during the last crash, people got kicked out of their houses and people suffered.
Yeah, I don't know if that happens this time, man.
I think that if we have any kind of bailout that is not the proper role of government, which this is so remotely, so remotely linked to the proper role of government. It's not even crazy. I think we will rob society of so much wonderful progress, and it makes me really, really sad.
Well, and here's the thing: is these greedy bastards in the Federal Reserve. Okay, I want you to think about the most evil thing that you've ever seen, witnessed, whatever, and I don't care if it's fantasy. I really don't. These guys in the Federal Reserve right now, with all the things that they have, it's not enough for them. It's not enough to live like gods on earth. And so what they're going to do is they are going to come after everybody's savings. People who have worked a lifetime to secure themselves in houses, in a lifestyle, whatever it is, that have made an honest living in life. Mm-hmm. They're going to come after that. They are going to absolutely demolish everybody's stock, everybody's savings, their 401ks, their property values, possibly their only source of income. And guess what? I'm not being hyperbolic when I say they want to kill you. And they will kill you. They do it every damn day. They do this every day when they sponsor things like Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq, Sudan, you name it. And we've been there, or they're there, backing one side, the other side, or both sides of engagements. They don't care how they get it. They want your production. They want you to enslave yourself to them. And if you're not going to be part of their system, they'll kill you. That is as simple as I can make it. That is how god-awful this federal banking cartel is. It's not hyperbolic. And right now, with what's going on as the world is melting down and the economy is grinding to a halt because everybody's scared as hell because of the propaganda machines that they are supported by, boy,
well,
if there's any time to band together as people and say enough is enough, let's find something that is not the Federal Reserve, that is not the banks, and let's do something privately where there is consent. And like we always say, good ideas don't require force. That's all this government and this banking cartel has done since this economy has fallen, is ramp up force, and it's going to continue to happen. Mark my words.
Well, it'll continue to happen, offset by the amount of subservience they can get to their current tactics or to their new tactics, which are much more effective, which we're talking like the digital stuff. Mm-hmm. I take a little bit of I think that the Fed is a little bit more of a non-human entity. I think it's so big, right? I think there's a bunch of evil players, but I think the most evil comes from the it's your quote about the sum of government's actions.
I trust the sum of government run by murderers and thieves to be
even worse than, like, to be even bigger than the sum, right?
Sure.
Like it's exponential. On that point, it's kind of a non-human entity, and all the evil players are kind of less important than that one entity. I do want to explain why I said that I think that they're going to rob us, because they do all the time. Shane is coughing over there. Corona cough.
Wrong pipe.
But because I think they're going to rob us of great things. Like, I want, and this is an example, so I don't want people to suffer, but I want my neighbor to knock on my door and say, "Hey, I don't have food." I don't actually want that, but I want that to happen rather than the government find new ways to stifle freedom to feed that person. Mm-hmm. And I think I saw this one post by somebody, and it was a picture of her, and like her daughters were laying on the couches and reading, and it was like the whole family there. And she said something like, "Oh, like amazing things. I can see amazing things are going to happen." And like the silver linings. I don't know what you guys talked in the last episode about the silver linings.
You didn't listen to it.
I didn't listen to it yet. I've been busy, man. I'm running a congressional campaign, for God's sakes. But that's not an excuse. But and I was like, oh yeah, that's so cool. Like, we're all forced to spend more time with each other. Especially families are forced to all go hunker down in their houses, right? Mm-hmm. Not forced, government forced, but they're like, the circumstances are forced them. And I was like, well, what is the government going to steal from us if we can't adapt in smart ways? They're just going to teach us. They're just going to not teach us. They're just going to continue the status quo of we don't think and we follow these automated ways, right? There's all these people who are upset at Brian Kemp because he's not shutting Georgia down. They're upset at Trump because he's letting the governors make their decisions for their states instead of like shutting America down. And if there was an emperor of the world, they'd be upset at the emperor of the world for letting the countries do what they wanted to do and not shutting the whole world down, right?
Right.
I can't help but wonder all the amazing things that could have happened. Like, people have helped me before. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have lived in other people's houses when I needed to and made some of the best, the best friendships ever been exposed to an enormous amount of humility in my life, and that is going to be robbed at a much higher value than $1,000 or $2,000 check, especially when you calculate the loss of freedom, which is much higher than that in the first place. They're going to rob us of all this that we could do by seeing the problems, and they're just going to hide the problems all from us.
Yeah.
I drove back up to North Georgia last week, and my self-service is crappy, so I didn't want to have a conversation with somebody who I actually wanted to be on the phone with, so I called detention centers. Haha. And I called detention centers, and I was like, hey, is there anybody who, like, I can help, who, like, can't post bail, who is, like, has a fee or fine, for some probation fee or fine, or some fee or fine that would get them out of jail today? Because I wanted to find the problems, because there's obviously people that they couldn't do this if people were happy, healthy, and prosperous.
Right.
Happy, healthy, prosperous people don't ask to be put in quarantine. They don't ask for the places they go to lunch to be shut down. They don't have a problem with people ordering alcohol to take out, because they're happy, prosperous, and so forth. And so I'm losing my train of thought, but you kind of get it. I wish that we were able to see all the problems and deal with them ourselves as people, because I think it would make us extremely happy.
Oh man!
Do you imagine somebody knocking on your door right now and being like, "Hey, I don't have any toilet paper.
Yeah, I can.
My ass is just a little scratchy." Shane, when things get better, I will make you really cool.
Don't worry, I'll loan you
this
some before you get out of
awesome
here.
Pecan pie. After I've washed my hands, of course.
Yeah.
If you could loan me some toilet paper,
Maybe not pecan pie, because the Help. I think that. Did you ever see the Help? Oh
No, I
boy,
haven't seen The Help.
There's this. There are people out there who have seen the Help, and the fact that you referenced pecan pie.
I love pecan pie
and the dirty in the same breath, basically. Like, oh man.
Okay, I don't know the reference, but that's funny. I just love pecan pie, and I used to live next to a neighbor who would make him a pecan pie every birthday, and even after I moved away, would make him a pecan pie. And I just think that robbing people of that opportunity is really horrific. Like, a lot of people don't get to help people on a daily basis, especially like you're in a family and you have your family to focus on.
Yeah.
But if somebody came to my door and I could give them food or toilet paper, like, it would make my day to do that. I would be like, look at me. I was able to help somebody else because I was more prepared, or I had more resources, or I was luckier, or I was more privileged.
So we're at about an hour 50 already. We could either pause and come back and continue this, or we can sign this off now. And that's just maybe a good point to say, hey, if we are going to sign off, go listen to 174. There's a lot of good stuff in terms of the silver lining stuff. Like, this is people helping people, like, and pointing out all the places where it's actually happening. Like, and that just a few examples, right? Like, just a few really cool examples here in Georgia. In even throughout the country, but what do you want to do? You want to keep pushing?
I think we should keep pushing. We can chop it up wherever we want to, and then at the end of this show, you should intro your kids thing.
Yeah,
I'm interested to listen to that.
So you guys are in for a treat, because I think we'll play it after this show. Maybe it'll make you feel a little better. I know this has been a little more doom and gloom so far, an hour and 50 into this, and depending on where we splice this, but also. Happy 175th episode, Banksy, and the rebels that are out there. This is number 175. I cannot believe we're 25 shows.
175 would have started a little bit before, right?
What's that? No.
Is this where it started? 175?
Well, it was 175. This one where we're just kind of wrapping up.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
175 shows, Banksy. Whew.
Is that where? I mean,
think about that.
I feel like the next time we're allowed to say something like episode 1000.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like this
250, 500.
This makes us like the really like new couple who's like doing their anniversary every month. 5 months anniversary. 5 months anniversary.
Oh no, we're well into the fraction of the percents of podcasts that are out there that are still going strong. And I mean, who knows? Maybe even more so during this weird time that we're in out here. Ladies and gents, we are going to cut this episode off right here. It has been an absolute honor to have you guys listen to us. The next one is not so much doom and gloom. I wanted to really touch on some things that were pertinent that I think you should know about, that you should bring to other people's attention, and maybe we can help explain that for you to them. There's a lot of sharing going on out there right now. We hope to be some voice of reason. We're obviously passionate about liberty and free markets and peace. And so I think that's probably going to do it for us here today. Banksy?
Yeah, if you have any comments on what we talked about or just want to talk to us, you can contact us at info@rebellionpod.com on all 3 social medias, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also leave a review while you've got all this free time for a lot of us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and whatever podcatcher you listen to.
I'm going to challenge you to do it with all that free time. We need some reviews. Go give us a review. I don't care if it's a 5-star or a 4.5. But
Nice one.
But yeah, we'd really appreciate that. It helps us get this message out to help humankind.
And if you want to help us more, you can go to patreon.com/rebellionpod. We really love you. We hope you stay safe out there. This is your place for peace, liberty, and free markets.
Love you. We need peace.
Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.